I can't count the times that I've been talking with someone and really enjoyed the conversation. We may be talking about music or movies or books or sports or U.S. history, you name it. We're talking about things we got a lot in common, and you're enjoying the conversation. You're thinking to yourself, man, I could really get along with this person. And then out of left field, they just hit you with the most bizarre, batshit crazy conspiracy theory that you've ever heard. And you say to yourself, how could you fall for that? How could you believe it? And no matter how quick you are to debunk it or point out all the flaws in their argument, they will stick to it and believe it like it's gospel. I've had that happen so many times, and I say to myself, how could this person be so smart in this area and such a good conversationalist in this area, and then turn around and tell me that Michelle Obama's a man? How could someone sit and carry on a great conversation with me and then tell me that Keith Richards is actually JFK in disguise? I mean, sometimes, folks, it gets so bizarre that I can't wrap my head around it. And I'm not saying that I've never in my lifetime entertained a conspiracy theory or thought that there might be something to or something wrong with the official story in certain cases. But these days, it's just gotten so far out of hand that I can't entertain any of them. And I especially can't entertain this one from Candace Owens, where she basically believes that Hollywood was created by the CIA and that there is demonic and satanic forces at work. Yeah, she believes the media is all black magic. And no, I'm not making this up. Take a look.
My conclusion after having read that book and just paying attention to what is happening, and my very, very real belief that Hollywood is completely being used as a form of psychological entrapment, as a form of mass psychological brainwashing. I believe the media is a form of black magic, that people actually sat down, experts, and they experimented to see how people would react to certain things, right? That they can create a celebrity virtually overnight, make people want to be like that celebrity, that they can induce people to love someone instantly or to hate somebody instantly. I'm someone that they induce people to hate immediately before they ever even heard what I had to say. They understand that headlines work. So if you say something enough times, people will believe it to be true.
So if you say something enough times, people will believe it to be true. Does that include the Biden crime family? I just wonder if that includes Benghazi. I wonder if that includes all the talking points that Maga loves to go to. She wants to talk about how they can make someone a celebrity overnight and have everyone loving them or hating them. That seems to be Maga's entire shtick that she's describing. It would be so easy to just flip the script on her and say, hey, you're actually just telling us how you go about creating your brand, but let's let her dig her heels in a little bit deeper before we talk more about it.
If you ask the majority of people right now about Michael Jackson in America, they probably still believe that he's a pedophile, even though he beat all the charges. And if you watch some documentaries, you will begin to ask yourself some serious questions about why they began attacking Michael Jackson at the moment that he was fighting to take down Sony, and why the people that he was fighting suddenly inherited his entire estate. So a lot of questions we should be asking ourselves. Have we all fallen victim to black magic? Absolutely. I've long suspected and have said publicly that the music that I'm hearing today that is being described as black culture, black music, it's not black music. I grew up listening to my granddad's music. This is not what the Temptations were singing about. In the 60s, they were singing about love and families being together. Now all of a sudden the music is so dark, it is so demonic, that it has led me to believe that Hollywood is in fact being controlled by some sort of a demonic cult with an intention to corrupt our souls.
Well, I really hate to break it to Candace Owens, but they've always been calling rock and roll the devil's music as long as it's been around. R&B, blues, soul, country, you name it. They have always preached that it was demonic and that it was teaching kids to do bad things. I'm sure when the Temptations were singing, there was preachers in my part of the world up on a pulpit saying, don't listen to that kind of stuff because spooning will lead to forking, okay? It's ridiculous that she wants to sit there and act like that this is some kind of new deal. They've been saying that as long as music and movies have existed, that there was some sort of satanic force. So she's not really on anything new here. But it is pretty comical to me that she actually believes that the CIA went out of their way to create Hollywood. But that's what she says.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream media, who absolutely adored him when he was deep in his addictions, hates him. Really think about that. And I will tell you, I am a big believer that Hollywood was created by the CIA. I believe that. I firmly believe that. You can say that's a conspiracy theory. When I think about all of the societal ills, when I think about how they artificially place people at the top of Hollywood who are preaching toxic principles, routinely anti-family principles, now definitively satanic principles, it just should make you pause and wonder, why is that? Why is that? Why do they reject someone like Russell Brand when he's coming up and recognizing that family and faith is turning him into a good person, and yet adore individuals as they're deep in their addictions? I'm just going to leave you guys with that thought.
See, folks, here's the problem. You can firmly believe in anything. It doesn't make it true. And you can go out and find a documentary somewhere that they made about it, and it still don't make it true. I could sit here in this chair and tell you that I firmly believe, that 2 + 2 = 17. And someone may make a documentary about it, and they may show all sorts of footage of how we've had it wrong all these years and how 2 + 2 = 17. But anyone could stand up pretty quickly and debunk that and go, you know what? There's no truth to that. And if I continue to sit and push it and spread it, then what good am I doing for society? I'm continuing to push and peddle misinformation and play victim. And that's always my biggest beef with all these conspiracy theories is whenever they get debunked, the people always circles back to, well, the reason they got debunked is because they, the mysterious boogeymen, I guess the deep state or the CIA or whoever came after them and made them say that it wasn't true. But it's still true. They've always got a built-in out. They always will have. And they can sit and accuse people of whatever they want to. They can literally make them up on the spot. And they've got a built-in audience ready for it. I hear people nowadays say, yeah, man, I'm big into conspiracy theories. I'm big into those. They should have never been a brand. That's not something that you should ever be into. You should look into things and see if they're real or not. Not just see if you can be entertained or not. Because, look, people can create a channel and they can entertain you all day long, okay? Anyone can do it. But it doesn't make it true. And you can sit back like Candace Owens has been doing, and you can claim that the First Lady of France is transgender. It's not true, and I love the fact that Piers Morgan called her out on it. Check this out.
And I think you've done it just for clout and clicks. Now, you can respond, but it's this question about the French First Lady, Brigitte Macron, who you keep saying is a man. You produced zero evidence that she is a man. It's been deeply offensive to her husband, President Macron, to all of her family. You keep promoting it to millions of people that follow you. And I simply ask why. She's not a man,
Yeah,
she's
sure.
a woman.
I'm happy to answer the question. I think Brigitte Macron is a trans woman. And I think the fact
she's
that when
not.
Brigitte Macron... Okay.
Where's your evidence that she is?
Well, Piers, the thing is I'm not allowed to speak after you ask me a question, so I don't really know what the purpose of this is anymore. You just seem to kind of be saying your own thoughts. So I'm just going to be silent here and allow you to monologue.
Where is your evidence that Brigitte Macron is transgender?
Well, I did an entire series talking about where this came from. And first and foremost, you're pretending that I'm the one that promulgated this. In fact, it was 3 journalists in France that worked on the story for 3 years.
Right.
And they teamed up with genealogists and they came across, and it was absolutely fascinating. I read the entire report, and everybody watching this, rather than listen to Piers Morgan giving you a bunch of adjectives, ridiculous, it's awful, I can't believe that she's saying this. Why don't you go pursue a primary source? Why don't you go find the articles that were written by the French journalists? Because this did not come from me. This came from French journalists.
And while they were working...
Notice how quick she tried to play the angle of, well, will you let me finish? Will you let me talk? You're trying to silence me. You're trying to shut me up. They always have to go down that rabbit hole when they realize they're being backed in the corner. Suddenly, you're taking my freedom of speech away because you just fact-checked me. No, if you get fact-checked, that doesn't mean your freedom of speech has been taken away. It just means you're being held accountable for what you said. But folks, as long as music has been around, as long as movies has been around, there's been a group of people saying that they were satanic. There's been a group of people saying that it was evil. I grew up during the 80s at the height of the satanic panic, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can remember these things. But I remember being told that my AC/DC shirt stood for Antichrist, Devil's Children, or After Christ, the Devil Comes. And it turns out that Angus Young said they literally got the name for their band off their sister's vacuum cleaner. I went around, back in the day, you would see the KISS shirts everywhere, and the church told me that stands for Knights in Satan's Service. They're trying to brainwash you with all their face paint and blowing fire in the air and spitting blood. and every movie that came out had some kind of liberal agenda going against family. She's not saying anything new here. She's not saying anything creative. What it basically boils down to is there is a whole lot of boring white people that wants to keep their religion at the front of everything. They want it to control government. They want it to control politics. They want it to control the narrative. They don't want their children to learn history the way it was really written. They don't want their children to learn science. They don't want their children to learn anything outside the box and the little church that they go to every Sunday. They don't want anything to ever question any of their thoughts that stays in that little echo chamber. So when they get out into the world and suddenly they're confronted with something and they go out and they dance and they have a good time, and they go out and watch a movie and they find it enjoyable, or they go out and find an artist and they like their music. They've got that mom or dad or uncle or cousin back home going, yeah, well, the devil's got you, buddy. The devil got you because you won't listen to our bullshit anymore. That's basically it in my mind. I've always been told from the time that I was growing up, I've been a musician for over 25 years. Do you know how many times someone's told me that what I was doing was satanic? And I'm sitting there just writing songs about the life I live. I remember one time having a conversation with a cousin who told me that it was evil to write songs like I do. And I said, well, I just told a story. All I did was tell a story. He said, well, it doesn't matter. You shouldn't have told it in that form because that's rock and roll and that's the devil's music. So I just pulled out the song by Creedence Clearwater Revival, Who'll Stop the Rain. And I said, okay. I said, take the song, Who'll Stop the Rain. I said, do you think that's satanic? He said, if it's rock and roll, it is. I said, okay. I said, so what if I told you that I went down to Virginia seeking shelter from a storm, and I got caught up in a fable, and I watched the tower grow, and I asked myself, who'll stop the rain? If I was to say that to you, would you think that that was evil of me to tell you that story? Well, no. Well, then why is it evil for me to sing about it? Well, because you're playing it to a beat that might encourage someone to have sex. I mean, that's the kind of conversations I've had with people in my part of the world, so I'm not at all surprised that Candace Owens thinks that Hollywood set out to dupe everybody and brainwash everybody. I mean, you could argue the same exact argument back to her and just switch the narrative to right-wing media. I could flip the script and say that your church did it. I could flip the script and say that your church taught you a lot of myths that weren't true, that were easily debunked. Half the time they didn't even know who wrote the books, like Jonah and Job. They didn't even know who wrote those. They were just random stories that somebody made up. I could easily say that those characters was created to control the masses. I could easily say that those stories and those myths was created to control the masses. I could flip the script on them very easily. What it is she's trying to promote a certain way of life. And the way to do that is to get everybody living in fear that anything that questions what she's telling you, she's basically projecting who she is. Anything that anyone says that questions Candace Owens, it's of the devil. Anyone that questions Donald Trump, it's of the devil. That's their built-in scapegoat. The devil has always kept them in business at the end of the day. Because if they didn't have the devil to blame things on, they wouldn't be able to sell nothing they're selling.